Hey Growth Summit, welcome to the Panoply offices here in San Francisco, California. First, before I start, I want to thank Foti and Jessica for putting this on. They've done an amazing job and they're two amazing people, so I can't say enough good stuff about them. And I also want to thank you for joining the talk tonight about, or in the morning, depending on where you are, about how we use data to drive growth at Panoply. I am just like everybody else who kind of got their way into a growth role, did not start there. I actually kind of found my way into it while I was playing baseball in Holland and Australia, where I was writing a blog. I learned about Google Analytics, I learned about SEO through the blog, and that kind of led me to a path where I ultimately was working at Postmates doing growth on the SEO and web front, and now I'm leading growth here at Panoply. So today, there's three parts of the talk. There is the acquisition part, so scaling, how we scale targeted acquisition, how we optimize our onboarding flow, and how we focus on revenue using data. No talk about data, especially in this age, would be complete without a picture of the customer data stack. So if you're like our company here, or a startup, or especially a software as a service startup, you probably have a ton of tools that you integrate and use to interact with your customers or keep customer records straight. And you probably have a lot of integrations between APIs and webhooks and all these things going on just to keep all your data kind of synced and kind of clear, and so it makes sense. But there's a lot of problems with that. And there's also a lot of problems with analytics tools in general, which is kind of why I'm giving this talk today. My first problem with analytics tools is that everyone kind of gives you a single picture of their way that they see the world. So HubSpot will give you reporting in that, Salesforce will give you reporting in that, Google Analytics will give you reporting in that, but it doesn't all really get all the data together. So a lot of people will download CSVs, put them into spreadsheets to get that singular view, but the problem with doing that is that the data is already tired as soon as you get it into the spreadsheet. Then, as I mentioned, of course, there's Google Analytics. Google Analytics was a great tool for websites that were built in WordPress in the early 2000s because that's what it was designed for. The problem with Google Analytics is that it's really hard to make their model of the world apply to a business of today, especially with all the different facets and all the different things that are going on with businesses. And finally, the whole class of opinionated analytics tools. So many tools will give you one view and one way to look at data, and it won't necessarily give you any options to kind of ask questions that it doesn't already provide to you. And so the problem with this is that the way you view your data informs how you think about it, and then it kind of constrains how you can think of it, and then constrains how you can act on it. So if you can't get to ask your own questions, you won't get to find out the answers that are actually more relevant to you than what the tool thinks is relevant to you. So that's why we use a few tools to kind of straighten out all of our data and put it all in one place, and then use it in the way that we want to for our business. At the core of our customer analytics stack is, of course, Panoply. Panoply is a data platform that allows you to bring in data from sources all over the place and put it in one place where you will always have it fresh and able to kind of combine and analyze. We also use a tool called Parabola to move statistical models back into HubSpot and Salesforce, and then, of course, Zapier and Slack to do kind of the more real-time analytics messaging stuff. Then we use Chartio for our dashboards and reporting. The first thing I want to talk about is how we scale targeted acquisition. And there's two parts to this, scaling and targeting. And those two things don't always go together. So I want to talk about how we're able to target traffic that converts the bottom of the funnel, not just the top of the funnel. So the example I have is our blog over the past about 2 years. I joined just after the time that we had to be GDPR compliant, and I set up measurement at that time. And what we saw is that like over time, our traffic has increased and then slowly decreased as posts kind of die off. But the whole time we are seeing the quality of our traffic and the number of trials that are coming from that traffic increase. So how did we increase traffic that we know converts? The first thing I did was implement Google Analytics content groupings. And as much as I want to talk bad about Google Analytics, it is a great tool for what it does. It allows you to implement it really quickly. But the challenges I have with that is that, one, it's not retroactive. It's a lot of work to maintain, and if you don't know JavaScript or have resources to use it, then it can be a challenge. And it limits you to seeing data that you can collect on the website, and that's usually at the top of the funnel. But what it does do well is it sets up, allows you to segment different parts of your site, and so you can see how people are converted depending on where they land on the different parts of the site. So a great tool, great thing to get going if you have nothing else. But I want to talk about a little bit more sophisticated way of doing it that kind of gets a holistic picture of how we attract traffic with SEO and how we optimize it. This is a report in Chartio that pulls in data from Google Analytics, HubSpot, MongoDB, which is our application, and Salesforce into Panoply, and then creates a dashboard in Chartio. And it segments all of our blog and website content into different category groupings, and then it allows us to compare sessions from one period to the next. It tells how many contacts we're getting from each part of the site, how many trials, and then more importantly, in the far right-hand side, it basically segments the whole funnel per content category. So you can see how much people move down the funnel based on where they land on the site. So the way that we use this to kind of scale up is that by identifying these core parts of the site that are really effective in attracting trials that end up converting kind of lower and getting deeper and becoming customers, is that we've kind of found replicable themes. So on the blog, there are certain topics that we know based on how we've measured and how we kind of have segmented out the funnel like that. We can target those and keep repeating those types of posts and those types of pages on the site. So other ones that do this really well are Zapier, Canva, and Grubhub. Zapier just basically creates a lot of templates for different integrations to target different keywords. Canva, of course, has a ton of different templates that they use to attract traffic that converts to trials. And then Grubhub, just like any food delivery service, will do a page for every combination of like pizza in Brooklyn, pizza in Portland, Oregon. You know, every type of food and place combination, they have a page for that. So it scales really, really well. It gets a lot of long tail traffic. And then the nice thing with that long tail traffic is that it converts really well too. So the second way we use data is to optimize our onboarding process. And I think this was a really fun project for me because it was early on at Panoply, and it really got me to get really up close and personal with the data that we'd collected. So this one's all about shortening the path to success. If you work at a software as a service company or familiar with free trials generally, you'll know that most often free trials are the duration, the lifespan of those is actually really short. People will offer you month-long or week-long trials, but most people don't even get that far. What we found over the past, it was like 2 years, was that most of our free trials actually ended in terms of usage in the first 60% were done within an hour, 72% were done within a day, and 87% of those were done within a week. So the question was, how do we shorten the path to success so that we can keep people engaged when we know they're going to be around and they have that motivation? And so the way we did this is we focused in on the first critical milestone. Since we're a data platform, collecting in data to analyze is the very most important thing that you can do. So, and it's also a signal for our sales and support teams, because anybody who's doing this is somebody that we can pay attention to. What we found here in this chart is that this is the distribution of the first 60 minutes in which they will collect data. And as you can tell, it's like all kind of front loaded at the first kind of 10 minutes. And what it ends up being is 80% of all the times people will collect data in a trial ends up being in the first 40 minutes of the trial. So we used to have a 3-week trial, but like really doesn't matter, because most people are just engaging in the beginning. And so it's really important for trials to have, or trial users to have success really early on. At this point, it's a little bit of a tangent, but I want to take this time to say, learn SQL. It is, first of all, it's a great way to make a little bit more money in your career, because it is a very transferable, universal skill if you're doing data analysis. It allows you to work with data at a much greater scale than spreadsheets will allow you to work with. And it's like I said, ubiquitous across technology. It's like JavaScript is to the web. And this query here, I only had to write 3 lines essentially to come up with that to come up with this graph to understand that. And so that just kind of gives you an idea of really how powerful SQL is. So the way that we acted on this insight of kind of 80% being done of happening at the first 40 minutes is that we changed how we all of our triggers and timing around our onboarding email flow from several days down to several hours. We changed it so like the first email, that if you don't take that first action, we're going to email you within 40 minutes. And then every further milestone, we're going to remind you when you're kind of have that motivation going. And then there will be fallbacks along the way. But we saw some pretty good success with that. The first thing was that we doubled our click-through rates without even changing our messaging. So by getting people, when they had the interest and the motivation to be in the tool, that made people just obviously more likely to re-engage when they had kind of gotten distracted at work or whatever. Did it actually speed up our time to first collects? No, it didn't. It actually slowed them down, but that we found was a good thing, because by sending reminders in the time that we did, we got people to open up that window of 40 minutes. So there was going to be all the people that collected before 40 minutes, but we were able to do was increase the number of people who collected after them. So we had a net gain in the number of people who were collecting data for the first time. So it was a pretty good win across the board. The second thing, and I think something as like kind of a data nerd myself, is how we use Slack to do real-time analytics. So we have a few channels in Slack that are dedicated to our trial users and their activity within the app. So we have one that's every trial user, when they sign up, we have a profile that pops up within a Slack message, and also same for if they request a demo or if they request or if they collect data into the platform. The cool thing about this is that you can then just search in Slack for their emails, and you'll see the entire event stream for that user. And this is great for visibility across the sales team, the support team, marketing, so we can all just know what each other's talking about and have one single view of the data, instead of having to look in Zendesk and Salesforce, HubSpot, and all over the other places. So cruising along here, the third and final thing I want to talk about how we use data at Panoply is how we focus on revenue, and specifically how we use data to focus on leads that are most likely to convert. So in the past year, through a lot of hard work and sleepless nights and luck, we've been able to increase our monthly trials by 3x, but unfortunately our team didn't scale in the same way. So we needed to figure out a way to scale ourselves, but really more importantly, we just needed a way to prioritize the work that we were doing so that we spend more time on doing high value things and less time on things that are unlikely to have any kind of effect on our success. So how did we narrow our focus on top quality leads? We broke down our trial again into 4 milestones. The first one I already talked about, it's collecting data. The second one is scheduling that data so that's already always refreshed in this platform. The third one is querying the data, and finally the last one is inviting users. There's a lot of apps out there. Canva, Airtable are ones that I can think of that are really pushing inviting users because there is so much of a obviously stickier effect, and it's a really strong signal in terms of onboarding quality. And I'll keep talking about this. So in our Israeli office, we have a really brilliant data scientist who created a statistical model that assigned a weight to each one of these events, and then depending on and how these weights all kind of give a signal to, or let me start over again. These weights all combined together will give a single metric about each trial and how likely they are to become a customer. I really butchered that, but Alex, if you're listening, I know it's way cooler than this, and next time you can talk about it. So one thing about data is that it's actually has historically been really difficult to deploy and get it integrated back into other systems in a kind of easy way. It's one thing to get it on a dashboard, and it's another thing to get it in Slack, and then it's another thing entirely different to get it into the systems that you can run automation through, like HubSpot and Salesforce or Drift. Excuse me. So that's where this cool tool called Parabola jumped in. They actually used to be just down the hall from us in our building, and I always kind of curious about what they were doing, and then I took a free trial, and it turns out it was a perfect way for us to deploy that statistical model that comes from all those inputs into Panoply and put it back into HubSpot. So now every contact in HubSpot and Salesforce has a lead score associated with them that's not just like kind of a guesstimate, but it actually has some bearing in statistics and the data that we've collected over the past 2 years. So that to say, like, we can take that Pareto principle and look at the top 20% of all of our contact lists and have our SDRs and salespeople really focusing there, because we know those are the ones who are going to convert, because the bottom of the list actually never converts. So we can kind of just let them play around with the tool, maybe, and kick the tires. But we're here focusing on revenue. I did talk about Parabola, but here it is again. The cool thing about this is that all you have to do is write a SQL query against your database, and then you can use Parabola to as a platform that kind of automates. So it's a no-code platform. It automates the syncing of data from one place to another. Has a ton of other cool features. I'd check it out if I were you. But most importantly, it's infrastructure, code, and maintenance all together, and you don't even have to worry about it. Also, I only pay $20 a month for it. It's insane. So we've gotten to the end of my talk, and really the question now is how will you use data to grow your business? Obviously, there's a ton of really, really smart mentors, probably 10 times smarter than me on the platform. I've had mentor conversations with a lot of them, and it's really changed a lot about how I view my own business and how I view past business, and basically how I view the whole industry, because everybody's different perspective allows me to kind of to grow and see things in a new way. I also happen to be on Growth Mentor, obviously. And so if you want to talk to me about how to set up a data infrastructure, I've done that with a handful of people. And I've always had really interesting conversations, and you don't have to take my word for it. They have my reviews to kind of back that up. If you want to use these tools, obviously I'm biased, but I think you should try Panoply. I don't think everybody on G2 Crowd agrees that there's nobody that makes it as easy as we do to get all your data in one place and not have to manage it with a lot of trouble. It's kind of like I was describing Parabola. Parabola has a pretty cool freemium option where they allow you to run like one task per day. Chartio also has a free trial, so you can get your hands dirty with that. And then everybody knows Zapier has a freemium trial thing too, where you're kind of limited in the number of zaps you can send. But for anybody getting started, smaller volume businesses, these are all really good options. Of course, I have a number of other really cool options that I would recommend too, but hit me up. Let's have a conversation. Finally, you can find me at trevorfox.com. I, for years now, have been writing about marketing technology and how code and data have changed the way that I think and how I work. And I just really enjoy learning about this stuff, so I write about it as much as I can. And I don't write as much as I should, but I keep it up as best I can. Also, you can find me on Twitter or Growth Mentor, of course. But finally, God, I really hope that this video recorded all the way through, and I hope that you liked it. So have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to chatting with you on Growth Mentor.